There are growing concerns that veteran guard Bria Hartley intentionally took out Sophie Cunningham, who's out for the rest of the season with a torn MCL. First off, look at this play. Bria Hartley clips Sophie, sends her down, and then she smiles.
What if I told you the WNBA might be entering an era of assaults, where it's not about basketball anymore, but about who survives long enough to play? Think about it. Caitlin Clark shoved, hacked, tripped Sophie Cunningham, one of the toughest, scrappiest guards in the league.
It seems intentional, but let's be real. This isn't the first time Bria's been in the middle of some drama. She's been in fights before, she has that reputation, and she even liked a post celebrating her being that player. And now there are fans that are calling for her to get kicked out of the league. That's how serious people are taking this.
Crumples to the floor with a torn MCL after a suspicious collision. And as she lays there in pain, the player who clipped her, Bria Hartley, smiles. Not a look of regret, not shock, a smile. Now Sophie is gone for the year. Surgery ahead, season over.
But the Indiana Fever have announced that Sophie Cunningham will be out for the rest of the season. Just to give a little recap about what happened, basically the Indiana Fever were playing the Connecticut Sun and Bria Hartley. Not shocking that it was Bria Hartley. Bria Hartley is involved in many messes in the WNBA.
But the real bombshell? She just hinted that her own teammate, Lexie Hull, could be next. That's right. Fans are convinced the Indiana Fever's Tres Leches trio of Caitlin, Sophie, and Lexie is being picked off one by one. Coincidence? Or a pattern the WNBA doesn't want to admit?
Including recently getting ejected from the Chicago Sky game for getting into it with Ariel Atkins after pushing Becca Allen to the ground. She got into it with Rickea Jackson from the Sparks.
In this video, we're breaking down everything. The play that tore Sophie Cunningham's knee apart and why fans are calling it intentional sabotage. The smile from Bria Hartley that lit social media on fire. Sophie's shocking warning about Lexie Hull being next on the hit list. And the bigger question, is the WNBA protecting its stars or letting rivalries spiral out of control? Because if the Fever lose Sophie, Caitlin, and Lexie...
So the Indiana Fever did report tonight that Sophie Cunningham will be out for the remainder of the season with a knee injury. Now, initially, the Indiana Fever didn't even report what the knee injury was. They just said that it would be season ending. However, Alex Filippo, she reported that Sophie Cunningham did tear her MCL and that she would be out for the rest of the season.
It's not just about one team's bad luck. It's about the future of the entire league. But before we dive in, I need to hear from you. Do you think Bria Hartley's hit on Sophie Cunningham was just a hard basketball play, or was it intentional? Drop your take in the comments right now. And while you're here, smash that like button, subscribe to Her Hoops, and join our community that isn't afraid to ask the tough questions the league avoids. To understand why this is blowing up, let's rewind. The Indiana Fever came into this season buzzing with energy. Caitlin Clark, the generational sharpshooter, was finally in the league. The Fever weren't just a team, they were a show.
This injury is such a huge blow for the Indiana Fever. Now they have Sophie out, Sid Colson out, Ari McDonald out, Caitlin Clark out. And I speculated this in my last video. I was like, I wonder if Sophie is actually out for the rest of the season, if this hurts our chances of seeing Caitlin Clark back on the floor this season for the Indiana Fever. And this is the last thing that I'll say about that podcast interview. As Sophie did mention, she talked about Caitlin Clark briefly and her recovery, and she basically just said, like, it is a day-to-day thing. Caitlin doesn't even know when she will be back, so she didn't really give any more information than that. But I think a lot of fans are speculating, will Caitlin Clark be back? Because Sophie is now out for the season, will the Indiana Fever risk it by bringing Caitlin Clark back? If Sophie is out, do the Fever even have a chance in the playoffs? Why would you bring Caitlin Clark back? Should you bring Caitlin Clark back? Will she be practicing this week? They have a tough stretch of games. Are they going to bring her back against a team like the Minnesota Lynx? We just don't know. And I, like I've said in the past few videos, I don't think Caitlin Clark is coming back.
And Clark wasn't doing it alone. She had Sophie Cunningham, the fiery vet with grit and edge, and Lexie Hull, the do-it-all wing who thrives off hustle plays. Fans started calling them Tres Leches.
No, I don't, because I know Bria and I'm actually really good friends with Bria, and I have been waiting to get on the pod and so we could talk about this because I did want to tweet it out, but I don't think that there was no ill intent. I think it was basketball play. I was just in the wrong spot at the wrong time. She fell. Like, there's no way that she would go in there and potentially try to hurt me. And so I have nothing but love for Bria. And I even like told my mom, because she tweeted something. I was like, no, Mom, like I get it, but like I promise you that like I was like, Bria and I are super cool, and like she would never try to hurt me, because there are some girls that I think might, but she wouldn't do that. And so I have nothing but love, and so I hope people stop giving Bria some heat, because I don't think she meant to do that at all. And I think that smile, it wasn't like it was like ooh, like one of those. So I'm totally fine. It's whatever.
A sweet nickname for a tough trio. They had the balance. Caitlin the scorer, Sophie the enforcer, Lexie the glue. The Fever were building chemistry, building identity, and building hope. But that's when the injuries started. First, Caitlin Clark took shot after shot from defenders. We're talking blindsides, shoves, reckless hits, the kind of plays that had NBA fans shaking their heads, asking, would this ever fly if it was LeBron or Steph or Sabrina Ionescu? Then came Sophie Cunningham. Midway through a battle with the Minnesota Lynx, Bria Hartley clipped her in transition. Sophie's knee buckled. She collapsed. Trainers rushed out. The diagnosis? A torn MCL. Season over. And here's where it gets dark. On the replay, as Sophie grimaces on the ground, Hartley can be seen smiling. Some fans argue it was coincidence. Others say, no way, that was satisfaction. And Sophie herself, she didn't exactly shut the door on conspiracy. In fact, she went further, hinting that if the Fever weren't careful, Lexie Hull could be the next target.
But let's be real.
So now the Fever are in survival mode. It's not just about wins or losses. It's about whether their players can make it through the season without being picked off one by one. But was Sophie's injury just an accident? Or is there a bigger problem brewing in the W? Up next, we break down the core problem, why the Fever's stars are becoming targets, and what this says about the WNBA's growing pains. Here's the heart of the issue. The Indiana Fever aren't just playing basketball, they're playing under fire. Think about it. Every league has that team that becomes a magnet. In the NBA, it was the Warriors when Steph started changing the game. In women's college hoops, it was UConn for years, then LSU, then Iowa, when Caitlin Clark started pulling up from the logo. The spotlight creates resentment. And right now, that spotlight is blinding on the Fever. Caitlin Clark isn't just a rookie. She's the most hyped rookie in WNBA history. She's the ratings draw, the jersey seller, the player little girls are pretending to be on their driveways. And in the WNBA, that makes her a target. Defenders don't just want to stop her, they want to make a point, push her around, test her toughness, knock her down to see if she gets back up. But here's where it gets ugly. It's not just Caitlin. Her teammates, Sophie Cunningham and Lexie Hull, are guilty by association. Sophie, known for her grit and fire, has already had a reputation as a scrapper. So when she goes down with a knee tear after Hartley's clip, fans don't see it as bad luck. They see it as a message. We're not letting the Fever get comfortable. And now, Sophie herself adds gasoline to the fire by warning that Lexie Hull could be next. That's chilling, because Lexie isn't some drama starter. She's the hustle player. Diving for loose balls, boxing out bigger forwards, doing all the dirty work. If even she is on the list, it suggests the Fever aren't just playing games, they're in a battle of survival. The core problem? The WNBA is letting physical play cross the line into dangerous territory. Instead of protecting its stars, it's creating an environment where targeting is part of the strategy. And with one star already down, fans are asking, who's next? But if the league doesn't step in, what happens to the Fever and the WNBA as a whole? Up next, we'll build the stakes. Why this isn't just about one injury, but about the league's credibility, the health of its players, and the future of women's basketball. So let's be real. This isn't just about Sophie Cunningham's knee or one questionable smile from Bria Hartley. The stakes are so much bigger. If the Fever keep losing their stars, the fallout hits everybody. First, the Fever themselves. This was supposed to be the season where Indiana finally climbed out of the basement. With Caitlin Clark at the helm, Sophie as the spark, and Lexie as the glue, they had a shot at being more than just that rebuilding team. But without Sophie, and with Caitlin already battered night after night, suddenly the Fever's dream feels fragile. Second, the WNBA's image. Let's not sugarcoat it. Caitlin Clark is the reason millions of casual fans tuned into the W this year. The league is setting ratings records, selling out arenas, and trending on social media like never before, all because people want to see her. If she, or her closest teammates, go down with injury after injury, those new fans don't stick around. They walk. And the narrative becomes, the WNBA couldn't even protect its own stars. And third, the precedent it sets. Think back to NBA history. When Michael Jordan entered the league, the bad boy Pistons didn't just try to stop him, they tried to beat him up. And for years, the league let it happen. But eventually, the NBA realized, if we let our stars get taken out, we're killing our own product. That's when the rules shifted to protect shot creators, scorers, the players fans pay to watch. The WNBA is staring at that exact crossroads right now. Do they let the physicality narrative spiral into cheap shots and dangerous plays? Or do they draw a line in the sand and say, our stars matter, our players' health matters, our game matters? Because here's the harsh truth. If Sophie is gone, Caitlin keeps taking hits, and Lexie Hull really is next, then the Fever's season crumbles, and with it, a huge chunk of the WNBA's momentum. And it's not just the Fever's own choices at play. There are rivals circling, teams with everything to gain from Indiana's downfall. Up next, we're diving into rivals and options, who benefits from taking the Fever's stars out, and what choices Indiana and the league have left to fight back. Let's talk about who stands to gain the most from Indiana's misfortune. Because make no mistake, when a rising team like the Fever suddenly has momentum, rivals notice. Start with the Minnesota Lynx. They're the team Sophie Cunningham went down against. A franchise with championships in its DNA, veterans who know how to push limits, and no interest in letting Caitlin Clark become the new face of the league without a fight. For them, knocking Indiana's chemistry out of sync is a strategic win. Then there's the Chicago Sky. Kennedy Carter's hard hit on Caitlin Clark earlier in the season already set social media ablaze. That moment was bigger than basketball. It turned into a cultural flashpoint, a debate about respect, rookies, and whether Caitlin was being targeted. Chicago made one thing clear: they're not afraid to play rough against the Fever. And we can't ignore the Las Vegas Aces, the defending champs, the powerhouse dynasty. Do you think they want their reign overshadowed by a rookie and a team that hasn't sniffed the playoffs in years? No chance. For the Aces, keeping Caitlin and the Fever down is about control of the narrative. So yes, rivals benefit when Indiana suffers. But what about options? What can the Fever do? Option 1. Adjust their style. If the league won't protect them, they may need to fight fire with fire. Bring in tougher rotations. Use their bench muscle. Send a message: if you come after our stars, we're coming after yours. But that risks escalating the violence. Option 2. Call out the league. Caitlin, Sophie, and their coaches could push harder in the media, force the WNBA to take accountability. Fines may come, but so could protection. Option 3. Survive and adapt. Focus on ball movement, quick tempo, and avoid situations where stars get exposed to hard fouls. Outrun the punishment, play smarter, and make it harder for opponents to even get the chance to take cheap shots. The problem? None of these options guarantee safety. And with Sophie's words still echoing that Lexie Hull could be next, the Fever don't have time to sit back and hope things magically change. And it's not just about strategy on the court. There's tension building inside Indiana's own locker room. Because when one player goes down, the pressure falls on the rest. Up next, we dig into inside the locker room tension. How Sophie's injury, Caitlin's spotlight, and Lexie's warning are affecting the Fever from the inside out. Picture being in that Fever locker room right now. You've just watched Sophie Cunningham, one of your toughest, most vocal teammates, go down for the season. You replay the moment in your head, the collision, the knee buckling, and Bria Hartley's smile. Now Sophie's in surgery, while the rest of you lace up for the next game. And in the middle of it all is Caitlin Clark. Every headline, every highlight, every hot take. She's carrying not just the Fever, but the entire league on her back. And when she takes those hits, the shoves, the hard fouls, it rattles the team too. Because if she falls, everyone falls. Now, add in Sophie's ominous warning about Lexie Hull being next. Think about the psychological toll that takes. Lexie's the quiet workhorse, the kind of player who rarely seeks attention. Suddenly she's looking over her shoulder, wondering if the next loose ball dive or box out ends with her season cut short. Tension builds fast in environments like this. Some players start pushing for retaliation. We can't let other teams punk us. Others push back. We can't afford ejections or more injuries. We just need to play smarter. And then there's trust. When Sophie publicly hints that Lexie might be targeted, does that create fear? Or motivation? Do players rally around each other? Or do they start hesitating, worried that the next hit could be their last? That's the unseen battle happening right now. The Fever aren't just fighting opponents on the court. They're fighting doubt, fear, and the psychological weight of being the WNBA's biggest target. So where does this all lead? What's next for Caitlin, Lexie, and the Fever as the season unfolds? Up next, we'll lay out the possible outcomes, the different futures Indiana could face depending on how they and the league respond to this moment. So, what happens next? There are a few possible paths this story could take. Outcome 1. The Fever overcome the storm. Caitlin Clark digs deep, Lexie Hull steps up, and the rest of the roster embraces the us-against-the-world mentality. They rally, string together wins, and shock the league by surviving the physical onslaught. That narrative would be powerful, the battered underdogs who refuse to break. Outcome 2. The injuries pile up. Without Sophie, with Caitlin constantly worn down, and Lexie potentially next on the injury list, the Fever stumble. They slide down the standings, and instead of being the breakout story of the year, they become a cautionary tale of wasted momentum. Outcome 3. The league steps in. After mounting pressure, the WNBA cracks down on excessive contact, handing out fines and suspensions. The Fever find breathing room, and the conversation shifts from can they survive to can they thrive. That move wouldn't just protect Indiana, it would set a precedent for the entire league moving forward. Which path becomes reality? That depends on how much fight Indiana has left, and whether the league values its stars enough to step up. But here's the real question. What do you think the Fever's future looks like? Up next, we'll close things out with a strong discussion prompt for the Her Hoops community. So here's where we land. The Indiana Fever aren't just fighting for wins, they're fighting for survival, for respect, and for the future of their franchise. Sophie Cunningham's injury was a warning shot. Lexie Hull might be next. And Caitlin Clark? She's already carrying the weight of an entire league while taking hit after hit. The stakes couldn't be higher. But now, I want to hear from you, the Her Hoops community. Do you think the WNBA needs to step in and protect its stars before it's too late? Or should the Fever toughen up, adjust, and show the league they can handle the target on their backs? Drop your thoughts in the comments, hit that like button if you believe this conversation needs more attention, and don't forget to subscribe to Her Hoops for more deep dives into the stories that are shaping the game. Because one thing's for sure, this season is far from over, and the Fever's fight, it's just beginning.